You go through your days on autopilot. You're not sure what your narcissistic partner's mood is going to be like that day, or any particular moment for that matter. You are so used to dulling down your emotions, and you can't be too sad, you can't be too happy, you can't show anger, because you know that will bring punishment from the narcissist or toxic partner that you're dealing with. And it's kind of like an emotionless robot has taken over your body, and on the outside you look normal to everyone else because you don't show that side of yourself to everyone else. You don't show them the distress that you're going through, the fear that you're going through, or the anger you're going through. And then at some point you start to realize that something is not quite right with your relationship. Your friends don't act like that. Your friends don't seem to be having problems every day with their partner. And you've known down deep that it isn't normal, but you kept hoping it would change. And this has been just a constant state of confusion in your relationship, hanging over your head for the whole time you've been together with this person. If you're new here, my name is Lori. I'm a former teacher with a master's in school counseling. I have a coaching certification, and now I help women who are feeling stuck in toxic or narcissistic relationships to get out if they are wanting that, or either to cope with where they are if they must stay. And I help them build a life of joy and peace no matter what happens. So if that sounds like you, follow along. So my story of being in a relationship where I had to dull my emotions all the time, I couldn't be too happy or I couldn't be too sad, couldn't show anger. I found myself one day just feeling so full of anxiety and overwhelm that I contemplated calling my ex's mother to tell her, something is really wrong with him, because he was accusing me of things, and he was drinking a lot. So I was just feeling so lost and afraid, and I snuck off to call a friend. A friend that I talked to a lot, she knew a lot about my situation, and it was one day I had to take my daughter to a music lesson. So while I was there waiting in the car, I called my friend and hurriedly told her all the things that were going on. I think it kind of surprised her. She knew a lot of it, but she didn't know a lot of the details, because at that time we both worked at home together, my ex and I, and so I wasn't able to talk freely. And when I told her these things, she was just a little bit shocked. And I, realized that this is a problem that I'm having to sneak off to get support. And I was feeling so lost and afraid, like, who do I talk to? Who's going to help me with this situation? And, my friend, like I said, she got really concerned. She lived in another city. So then she texted me that night saying, "Are you safe?" And, I was safe, but he happened to see that text come in. And that set off a whole another argument, because, he's like, "What are you telling this person about our relationship? And why does she think you might not be safe?" So, I had to deal with that. I was constantly being accused of things that weren't true, which kept me on edge and defensive. And I dealt with constant monitoring. He checked my calendar, read through my notebooks, checked my phone, listened in on conversations. And that's when I knew that something had to give. Coping was not enough anymore. I couldn't just walk through my days on autopilot anymore. So how do you know when you are ready to leave your toxic relationship or maybe not even leave yet, but just start to begin the healing process, there's 3 signs that can help you know that it's time to get help because you're struggling. And sign number 1 is that you're tired of managing the chaos. So you've been coping, walking on eggshells, you've been over-explaining, avoiding conflict, trying to predict their moods all the time. And you're like a battery. So your energy, imagine a cell phone battery, your energy being charged all the way and then slowly being drained and drained until you run on like 20% at all times. So, you go to work and you have already gotten your battery drained to 20%, and you come home from work and your battery may be like at 10% at this point. And any little thing goes wrong, like the kids come home and they have a problem that they need your help solving, or you have a family member that gets sick, or there's something that breaks in the house, then you are completely depleted. You do not have the energy to deal with all these other little things. Not only that, you don't have a partner at home that will support you in dealing with all those little things, or even big things for that matter. So the shift comes when you start craving that stability. I remember just praying, like, I just want peace in my home. I'm tired of the drama. You're craving the stability instead of being in that survival mode all the time. Okay, sign number 2 is that you're starting to question things. You're questioning the narrative. Like, what if it's not me that's the problem? Like I've thought all this time, or like they're telling me is the problem. What if this isn't normal? You hear people say that marriage is hard, but what if this is not the same kind of hard that they're talking about? What if it's something bigger? The gaslighting isn't working like it used to. You used to think, oh, yeah, maybe that's right. Maybe they weren't cheating on me. They were at a work function and somebody accused them and that person was wrong. But now you're starting to think, that doesn't sound right. I don't think that's right. And you start to recognize that your version of events is actually the true version, and you're no longer believing this narrative that the narcissist is trying to sell you. The other thing is that your intuition is starting to wake back up. Like, you're starting to notice, I keep having this feeling in my gut that something is not quite right. That happened with a client of mine. She kept telling me, like, I don't have any proof that he's doing the things that I think he's doing, but I just keep having this feeling and it keeps coming up over and over again. So I told her, you have to trust that feeling. Whether you have proof or not, your body is sending you a signal. Your body is, it represents your subconscious mind, and your subconscious really understands when there's danger around. It notices much more quickly than your conscious mind recognizes. So when you start to question, then that is your doorway out of that survival mode. Like, you're starting to wake up. That's why I call it my group program. It's not open right now, but I called it Becoming Conscious. And the first thought was you're becoming the person who you want to be, that is waking up from this narcissistic abuse. And then I added conscious to it because it's like you're finally figuring out that something's not quite right and you don't want to continue living this way. So sign number 3 is you crave peace more than you fear the unknown. So for so long, I know a lot of my clients have the same thing. Like, we don't know what's on the other side of leaving. We know that right now, today, we can survive, we can hold out waiting for the good times to come back, because usually they do. But we fear what's out there beyond leaving. Like, am I going to have trouble with finances? Are the kids going to struggle? Or, what am I going to do for work? And, the questions go on and on. But now you're starting to think, like, I don't care what is on the other side. I know it has to be better than this. That's how I was feeling. The fear of leaving used to feel bigger than the pain of staying, but now the fear is kind of dissipating, because you will be better off. Peace, calm, and freedom feel more important than this familiar chaos. You imagine life without second guessing yourself. Maybe even you're starting to research what is possible for you on the other side. So you're starting to think about, where could I live? Who could help me? What would I do for money? What about the kids? How am I going to get them help? So once you start thinking about those things, that's a third sign that you are ready to stop this just coping and getting by. So if this is resonating with you, you're a little bit concerned, I'm not sure how I will do this, then think about setting up a peaceful clarity call with me. I'll put the link in the description, but I can just kind of guide you, like, look at where your situation is right now. I'll ask you questions, and then I can tell you, like, take this step next, and just kind of guide you forward a little bit. Even just having somebody that has been there before listen to you it makes such a huge difference. That happened with me. I called a coach. She's practicing in a different manner now, but at the time she was a lifesaver to me, because I called her and she just kind of validated my feelings. I already knew that this is probably what was going to happen. I was going to leave, but she validated my feelings and helped me see that certain things he was doing were abusive. So the first steps towards healing that you can start working on today is, you don't have to make big moves right away, but you can just start educating yourself. I talked about one of the signs was questioning, and start looking into what healthy versus toxic relationships are, and start learning what the different kinds of abuse are, the symptoms of them. I was a little shocked when I saw what abuse was. I was like, what I'm going through is abuse? Like that? I thought of abuse like somebody calling you horrible names, or hitting you, or keeping you trapped in your home, that kind of thing. But I didn't realize that some of the other things were abuse, like accusing you of things, or making you feel like you don't have freedom, making you have to beg for money, that kind of thing. So look into those, and then make sure you spend some time alone to reconnect with your intuition. So for me, I did some guided meditations online. There's an app called Insight Timer. And in the beginning, I noticed that I had to listen to these guided meditations. They just kind of walk you through a scene, like you're walking through a forest and you come to a stream and you sit down beside it, and that kind of thing. And they have your guide come to you, or your inner knowing. And I had to listen to those like 1 or 2 times usually 2 times in the beginning, to kind of be able to reach that inner guidance. And I started noticing the feelings that I was having. So when something was like a yes to me, I get chills on my, or I guess like chill bumps on my right calf, which is a strange place to get it, but when I was feeling anxious, I noticed that I would start breathing more shallow, my chest would feel tight, and I noticed that I scrunch my shoulders up, and I get a lot of tension down the right side of my neck. So once I started recognizing those signs, I could kind of like purposely drop my shoulders and take some deep breaths. When you breathe deeply, it sends your brain a signal that you're safe. And because most of us, when we're afraid or anxious, we start breathing really shallow, and then you start to feel like you can't breathe. So if you take some deep breaths and just slow down your breathing, that can really help with the anxiety. And I started noticing how often these things were happening. How often am I getting this tension in my neck, and how often am I noticing that I'm breathing really shallow? So start to pay attention to those signs from your body. If you have chronic pain symptoms like IBS or migraines or hip pain, back pain, foot pain, notice those symptoms, because they're usually trying to tell you that something is not quite right in your life. Like if you're having IBS symptoms, you're probably under a great amount of stress. If you're having foot pains, you know, there's something off in your body. You're holding tension somewhere, and it's making you walk out of alignment, and it's causing that pain. So those are also symptoms. If you're tired of this chaos, you're tired of questioning things and creating peace more than fear, then you're already on this path to becoming conscious and waking up to the difficulties in your relationship. You don't have to stay stuck in coping. Even the smallest step forward is still movement towards freedom. So, you know, make sure you're doing some things for yourself. Make sure you're paying attention to your body's signals. Take some time just to sit in quiet. Those are healing practices that you can do today, whether you're ready to leave your relationship or not. You can go in a quiet bedroom. You can go in your car to get silence. You can go into the shower. You know, find quiet somewhere in your life. So if this is resonating with you, I'd love for you to check out the blog that I posted this week. I will link it in the description as well. And if you're ready to take the next step, schedule a peaceful clarity call, and I can help guide you through, you know, what the next step will look like for you. So thanks so much if you stayed to the end. If you have any questions about narcissism or toxic relationships that you would like me to cover in the future, let me know in the comments, and I will be happy to check those out. So thanks so much, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.